Okay, this is a really basic overview of scaling an image in Photoshop. Now, we've opened this image, we've got it from Unsplash, so it's a reasonable quality, and we'll go to image and we'll go to image size. Now this will tell us how big this image is. Now we can change it into pixels or centimeters, or certainly if you're doing design work for print, you're probably using millimeters. Now, what we have here, it tells us the original dimensions, which is 66,000 pixels by 4,000 pixels, and it's quite a large size. You know, certainly I expanded in Photoshop, it's 68 megabytes, so that's quite large. Now you'll see the physical dimensions here are very large. There's almost, it's 2 meters by 1 meter at a resolution of 72. So ideally, if you're trying to print this out on an A4 sheet, it would obliterate it. So that's why you need to scale it to the right dimensions. Now, what we have here is what's called resampling. And if we see here, there's different types of resampling. We won't really go into these, but they try and smooth things out to keep the detail. Now, resampling in Photoshop or bitmap programs, what it does, it actually adds pixels for you, or it can take pixels away. Now, if you can imagine, when you take a digital photograph, you just need the original captured images, pixels that you've captured with your camera. What you really don't want to do is have a digital program like this, although it does a very good job creating those pixels for you to allow you to scale up an image. So how it works is Photoshop will look around here and say, okay, I'll sample these colors here, the yellowy and these type of image, and I'll add extra pixels to similar color. And what it does, it resamples the surrounding areas with the pixels and adds more pixels in there. Now it does a really good job of doing that because it's quite complicated, but when it does that, it loses definition, especially when you're enlarging an image. If you're enlarging an image greater than its original size, you will lose quality and you will lose definition. You can get away with slightly making an image smaller, but even then, what it's doing is ripping pixels out, existing pixels out, and it's sort of rejigging it. So if you make it reduce it in size quite a lot, again, it will lose definition as well. So ideally, you're having an image that's going to be the same size as sort of is going to be outputted, or you try and avoid resampling. So first of all, we'll look at what happens if we don't resample. If I uncheck this, you will see now these are locked together. So if I change any one of them, it'll change another value. Now, if I wanted to print this out, if it's going in a magazine, a full color print job, I would need to do it at 300 pixels. And if you notice there now, it was 2 meters wide. Now it's only half a meter wide at 300. Now that's still a large size, certainly to print, but what I could do now is I could come down here, click the resample, and then I could make it to a more reasonable size. So I could say width could be something like 29, which is getting down to an A4 sheet. And also we can look at the preview. It still seems to be okay. So I could click OK to that. Now the other thing you can do, it's got some presets here. If they match, if you want to do prints, it'll scale it to 6x4 or 5x7. If you're going to print out prints, it's got A sizes above here, and also it's got dimensions for online use. Now these 144 pixels per inch are probably more high definition, but generally you would be using something like a screen size of 72 pixels per inch for digital output like websites and apps. Although it's more complicated because certainly you have high density screens and sometimes you have fallbacks for larger or smaller screens. Again, we won't really go into that. So first of all, if I wanted to do this 5x7 at 300 dpi, I would put that in. Now ideally also, if you are doing it for a laser printer, you could get away with a resolution of 170. If you're doing it for an inkjet printer, maybe 140. And again, as I said before, full-blown printing, offset LIFO professional printing is 300. And if you're doing it for a website, you could do it at That's 72. Now you would need to set the dimensions to the size you want them to be. So that's also important. And usually in design work, you have placeholders. Certainly if you're doing magazine work, you have a placeholder. So you create a placeholder first so you know how big your image needs to be in that placeholder. Again, to recap, you can make images a little bit smaller, but never make an image, a bitmap image, larger than its original size. And usually the best way of taking digital photographs, certainly on an SLR, is using the RAW format and then converting them out into either TIFFs or JPEGs. And again, they don't lose any quality when you do that. Okay, so once you're happy with the sizes you want your image to be, then you can check it and see what the quality is, and then you click OK. Now, always examine your image at 100%. Certainly, if you get the magnifying glass, I can do that, or I can click 100% up here, and it doesn't look too bad. Also, the other thing you can do is bring up the navigator, which is here, or you can find it over here. It's got like a ship's wheel, and it opens up this navigator, and you can look around your image and move it around to see what the quality of the image is like. Now, next, what we're going to do is enlarge this and see what happens just for the quality. We'll go image size, and again, we'll come up here. And what I'll do, it's got millimeters on here, and it's got 200. Now, if I did this something like about 800 millimeters, it gives me a little preview, which I can look around on. It's quite difficult to move it around. You'll actually see the quality reducing. So if I come along here and do it 1200 millimeters, again, this is going to be quite huge. I move this around to get an idea of what the quality is. You'll see definition starts to reduce. So now if I click this, this may take a while because the computer's crunching it. Now this is the navigator. Now it's huge, this image. So if I move this around, it will give you an idea of what the clarity of the image is. Now, it does do a really good job of enlarging things in Photoshop and sort of getting better. But you'll look at this image and think, oh, if I was using it, this is at 100% in a magazine, it's lost a lot of its definition. You'll see, the quality of it has reduced, and you've got to make that assessment if that's okay. You'll probably find because it has resampled it, it hasn't pixelated. That's the other problem sometimes you have. It just you can see the pixels in it. There's no pixels in it, but it has lost a lot of definition. So don't enlarge an image, just rejig it without resampling, and then once you've got it to the right resolution, then you can just resample to take the size down.